Pond boss, tell me what to do.
I never get that right.
To make all my Lunker Lake dreams come true.
I don't know why I never get that right. Hello, everybody. Bob Luss, the Pond Boss. Hey, I see Wayne, Dana Baker checking in. Wayne, good to see you, buddy. I know you're there quite often, but sometimes I don't see you, but I'm so glad you're watching. I need to turn the speaker off, so I'm going to do that right quick. Hey, welcome. Wide Open Wednesday. I've thought about a topic. I got a few things to talk about, but I'd much rather hear and talk about what you guys want to talk about. So why don't you start pitching me a few questions, and we'll circle around and handle all that. So, you guys know the drill here. I'm going to make sure I got it. There's Anthony Abate's checking in. Kenny Snipe. You can tell him what that means. Good to see Anthony from Chicago area. Kenny Sanderson's checking in from Kansas. Let's see, we got, holy cow, we already got 26 people, 27 people. Frank James, good to see you. You guys know the drill. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine in the comment section. Click like, share this to your timeline, and you'll be eligible for a drawing for a Pond Boss hat and a Pond Boss mug. Say it with me, all you Pond Boss fan. This mug knows how to, let me hear you, keep hot things hot and cold things cold. We don't know how it knows, but it knows. There you go. Kim Moore checking in from Central Illinois. Connie Douglas. Greetings, you guys, you ladies, everybody. There's Vito checking in from just up the road over here in Whitesboro. Good to see Vito. Vito and I go back a long ways. Vito is now starting to turn gray and losing a little bit of hair. Not that much, but I knew Vito when he was in high school. Vito's got a pond out behind his house, got bluegill in it. We're going to add a few bass for him later on. There's Danny Mack. Holy cow. Good old February weather down there in San Antonio. Yep. Forever and foggy drizzle. John Funk's checking in, Mid-Michigan. Did you have winter again, or are you still kind of warmed up there? So, there you go. I see Ron Ardoin checking in. I got an email, or actually a text from Ron today. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. Tony Sutton checking it in Oklahoma. Good to see Tony. I just love this. This is so much fun. All you guys and gals from all over the country. Somebody asked me about this show last week, and I said, you know, it's pretty fascinating to me because here's this gray-bearded guy, mid-60s, a talking face, and there's a crowd here. And I totally believe it's because you guys are energized, you're excited, you want to learn more about how to be better stewards of your land and water. And I kind of get to be a vehicle to help you with that. Kyle Edwards from northern Mississippi. Anthony's got a question about water chemistry. At what point do nitrates become harmful to, say, a 2-acre pond? Nitrates really aren't harmful. Oh, you didn't see that coming, did you? The thing that's harmful is before it gets to nitrates. So when a fish breathes, part of its metabolism byproduct, especially when it's breathing and pooping, I guess you can say that on this show, they're giving off ammonia. So ammonia is nitrogen, NH3, or NH4. So that stuff's got to break down. As it breaks down into nitrates and nitrites, it's called denitrification. So this time of year, what happens, especially in Chicago when you have ice, when the fish are metabolizing, they're giving off their waste. If it can't metabolize and change from ammonia to nitrates to nitrites, then that's what becomes toxic. And ammonia, which that's deadly. It's deadly to people. So nitrates, I don't know what the actual number is, but 3 or 4 parts per million, they can actually live with that. And what typically happens during denitrification, going from ammonia to nitrates to nitrites, that's nitrogen actually ends up getting bound in plants. Plants take it up and use it. So that's part of the conversion of nutrients in water. Good question. That's a good way to start it off. All right, I do have some topics. Holy cow, you guys are throwing them at me. This is so cool. I love this. Dana Baker, I have a small pond in Pennsylvania that's full of 2 to 5 inch bluegills and crappie. I just bought this property. It's probably an acre pond. The previous owner said he stocked it 3 years ago. What do I need to do to get the crappie to grow? I want to have a good crappie population. A pond that size, a small pond, crappie really needs space, and they need a lot of food. Here's the deal with crappie in Pennsylvania. There's a couple things. Crappie will be the first or second fish to spawn in the spring, and their babies will turn around and eat the babies coming off the other beds. So they're unpredictable spawners. You don't know if they're going to spawn or not. You know, if you get 3 or 4 back-to-back cold fronts when the water temperature is just right for them to spawn, they won't. You know, so the way to get crappie to grow is you got to have food for them to eat. So when you've got 2 to 5 inch bluegills, you need habitat for bluegills to be able to spawn, have babies that the crappie can eat. Now, yeah, I think in that circumstance, I am not a fan of crappie in small waters. Let me say that. I think it's a combination to not do well. I don't like the word fail, but I'm going to use it. I think that's a combination for crappie to not do well. In a small pond, if you can get 25 or 30 crappie to grow up to be 12 to 15 inches, you've had a home run. And it's going to take, it takes 10 pounds of bait fish for those crappie to gain a pound. So you got to have a whole bunch of little bitty bait fish because crappie are top end predators limited by their mouth size. So if you got a crappie that's this big, its mouth is this big. I'm trying to get it right. Something. Holy cow. Help me out, Josie. There it is. About that big. You got to have the right kind of bait fish for that crappie to be able to eat it. And it takes 10 pounds of those bait fish for crappie to gain a pound. So I think that to get the crappie to grow, I don't know how many were stocked. You probably need to thin their numbers, feed the bluegills, and I would consider adding some golden shiners in there. Add some golden shiners within a couple of weeks after the ice thaws. Yep. Here we go. All right. Got my bass voice going on tonight. So let's see here what Ross has got. Ross Johnson just stocked my pond with fathead minnows and bluegill 3 months ago. When should I add the largemouth bass? You know what? I would do that at the end of May, 1st of June. And I don't know quite where you are, Ross, but I would stock those bass towards the end of May, 1st of June. Because then what you're going to get is you're going to get enough time for the bluegill to grow up enough to begin to reproduce. They're the backbone of the food chain for largemouth bass. So you really want them to grow. And the fathead minnows, they're going to jumpstart your bass. So you want the fathead minnows to spawn. They spawn on the underneath side of firm objects. So if you don't have anything for fathead minnows to spawn on, you need to get something. Go find some wooden pallets or some PVC pipe or something. Pillars on a dock. Fathead minnows stick their eggs on the underneath sides of firm objects. Get some firm objects with underneath sides. Fathead minnows will spawn on that. So you really want them to spawn a whole lot. Then add your bass about the end of May, 1st of June. That's typically when they're first available. And stock bluegill or stock bass that haven't been spawned yet. Very important in a small pond like that. Jeff Wallen, Steady 30 in Central Illinois. You know what? It's kind of weird. I was talking to Matt Rail today in Indiana. It's pretty cool there. He's been kind of out rambling, roaming around the countryside, spending a little bit of time in the winter with his wife and his kids. And he's going on. Harrison, you're killing me, dude. I'm sitting here reading that right now. Yeah, them damn no otters. What are we going to do with them? I don't know that it's a weird winter, although so far here, it's been pretty mild. We've had one little snow flurry here in North Texas, although Danny Mac down there in San Antonio, he got way more snow than we did. We got dusted. So Harrison says, good evening, Pond Boss. Did you hear the North American river otter may have rigged the election and caused the pandemic? Well, we got to give somebody credit. Might as well be an otter. John Funk, roller coaster winner, no safe ice at the moment. Dude, I'm telling you, that's crazy. When you live in mid-Michigan, Holy cow, I know what it is, John Funk. It's your governor. Your governor is not allowing safe ice. Or wait, maybe she's not. I don't know. You know what's really crazy? I kind of believe in climate change, but I don't know that it's man-made. I struggle with that. But I do see that we have these differing years of cold, not cold, warm, not warm, winter, mild, winter, harsh. You know, and I don't know what to tell you about that. So here's what I'm going to tell you, John Funk. Stay off the ice. Connie Douglas, we have a pond in the Texas Panhandle that really has no runoff, has good clay. Can we supply it with enough water if we have solar wells? Connie, I love that question. I'm going to tell you this. If you've got a Big Chief tablet and a number 2 pencil, here's your answer. Where you are, you're sitting right on top of the Ogallala Aquifer. And I know that the aquifer is regulated. Here's what you need to figure out. 1 acre, 1 inch deep is 27,000 gallons. Now think about that. 1 acre, 1 inch deep is 27,000 gallons. And when you live in the Texas Panhandle, in summer months, you know, it's going to be, depending on where you are in the Panhandle, you're going to have as much as half an inch of evaporation every day. So if your pond is 1 acre and you have a half inch of evaporation, that's 13,500 gallons going to the clouds. So divide that by 24 hours, divide that by 60 minutes. That tells you how many gallons a minute you need just to maintain the level of the pond. Now here's part of the problem with the Panhandle of Texas in ponds. I was talking to a guy a couple days ago who's built a pond in a canyon off the Canadian River watershed. He gets enough rain to keep it full, but his soils are so porous that the water just fills the pond up. Then within just a few days, it's gone. And so instead of having a pond he can catch fish in, he's having to mow it. No, he's really not. I'm just joking. But the point is if you've got good clay and you can minimize your seepage and you can calculate the volume of water that you need, then you can figure out what to do with the well and what you need. Holy cow, there's Luann Bassano watching this show. Holy cow. Luann, you know what? I don't know if Walter knows how to do this or not, so maybe you can help him do it. That's pretty dang cool. Tony Sutton, should I get my F1s and Floridas from an Arkansas or Texas hatchery and stock them 20 miles north of Interstate 40? You know, Tony, I would get the F1s from a hatchery that's reputable, whether they're in Arkansas, Montgomery, Alabama, Texas. You know, as long as you're confident that the genetics are as they say they are. Now, here's the real answer to that question. If you're 20 miles north of Interstate 40, of course I get a phone call during the middle of this. Okay, so I'm going to go back and talk about this. Tony, the question is, should I get my F1s and Floridas from an Arkansas or a Texas hatchery and stock them 20 miles north of I-40? You know, as long as you're confident that the genetics are appropriate, be confident of your hatchery. It doesn't matter where they come from as long as you're confident that the genetics are as you expect them to be. Now, here's the problem 20 miles north of Interstate 40. Do you have water depths enough that the temperature won't drop rapidly? See, the thing about Florida bass and F1s, they don't really like cold water that gets cold quick. If your water temperature plummets quickly, they don't like that. You know, and I've actually watched Florida bass go from water 55 degrees to 33 degrees and die. But I've also seen F1s live above the Mason-Dixon line under the ice, where the water's deep enough, the water got cool slowly, that ice formed, and the water at the bottom of that lake's 40 degrees. You know? So now here's the catch-22, Tony, is north of Interstate 40, will they thrive? Now, I don't know that I would try Florida bass north of Interstate 40, but I would sure try F1s. You know, the Florida bass, the main reason you want those is so they can reproduce with your existing fish and keep that gene pool fresh. That's the main thing you want to do with those. But give it a try and see. I'm not opposed to that. Let's see. Christopher Aguilard. Hashtag Daddy. Boudin Man is in the house. Jake Hughes. Hey, Jake, I don't know you. I'm glad you're there, dude. Thanks for checking in with us. Jeff Cox. I have a 3-acre lake that's filling in and is decades old. It's down only about 3 feet. I have the options of increasing the height of the dam to gain depth that way, or do I dredge the areas I can? Well, I'll tell you what I would tell you, Jeff Cox. I would tell you, if you're going to try to dredge, by the word dredge, I mean pump muck out, you're going to spend $10 a cubic yard of wet material. Whereas if you can raise the levee 10 feet, 8 feet, 6 feet, 3 feet, and increase the surface area and increase the depth that way more efficient. But what would happen if you moved downstream 100 feet and built a brand new dam? You know, so I think there's several ways to skin that cat if we're skinning cats. Sorry, Josie, you're not a cat skinner. I'm not either. But but what I'm telling you, Jeff, is a lot of times it's smarter to build a new lake than it is to try to renovate an old lake, if you have the space. Now, if you don't have the space, then I would look at whether you should dredge it or whether you should get the water off of it, get somebody with a track hoe and a track hoe and a couple of bulldozers where they can push the muck down and the track hoe can scoop it up, go around, dump it on the back side of the dam. If you can do that to get your depth, that's about the most efficient way you can do it. Now, moving that dirt that way is more like $5 a cubic yard. But if you want to go build a new dam and raise the level of the lake a few feet, or raise the level of the dam that you've got now and seal it real good where it can't seep, you know, you're talking about $2.50 to $3 a cubic yard to get that depth. So I would, I don't know where you are, but I would sure get somebody out there to take a look at it. All right, let me see here. I'm kind of getting behind. Holy cow, 21 new comments. 52 people that I know about. Ross Johnson, just stocked my palm of fathead minnows and bluegill 3 months ago. When should I add the LM bass? Largemouth bass, East Texas. Do that at the end of May, 1st of June. Chris Chavetta, great to see you. Good to see you, Chris. One of my good friends. I love Chris Chavetta. When's the best time to agricultural lime? I love the fact that you spelled lime with a Y. Now. Agricultural lime from now to the end of February. I've got a really good box wine going on. And I'm going to go eat catfish at Pelican's Landing when we're done. Mike Cottrell checking in. Todd Austin checking in. Can golden shiners be a better option than threadfins just north of I-40 as another form? Yes. Golden shiners will not die north of Interstate 40. They can be a better option if they can sustain their population. Threadfin shad are so prolific, but I promise you, north of Interstate 40, they're going to die. So let's see here. Mike Cottrell checking in. Kyle Edward, what's the best depth to feed bluegills in? You know, that's a cool question. I haven't gotten that one in a while. What's the best depth to feed bluegills in, Kyle says or asks. Kyle, I'll tell you, if you feed bluegill in water 10 feet deep, your bass are going to eat some of them. That's okay with you, that's okay with me. If you feed them in 3 to 4 feet of water, your bass aren't going to prey on them as heavily, and you're probably going to get more small bluegill to come to the feed. That's okay with you, that's okay with me. Depends how big your pond is. I'd be real tempted to have 2 feeders or feed them in 2 or 3 different places and have a feeding program rather than just a feeding system. Feeding program is where you're drilling into and zeroing in to preserve the species, feed the small ones, and get the bigger ones to grow bigger. So, there you go. Is that a non-answer or is that an answer? I love watching bluegill feed in water 8 feet deep and about a 6-pound bass come and inhale some. It's kind of fun to me. Ron Ardoin. Ron, I'm going to talk about a levied reservoir here in a minute if I get to it. It's already 10 till 7 and I've been talking in circles. Connie Douglas, you're welcome. Chris Chavetta, Oop, holy cow. Things are running amok here. When the hatchery truck arrives, how do you check the quality and the quantity of fish ordered? Oh, that is such a good question. Aaron Gilbert, can you stock too much bait fish? No. Now, too much bait fish means that you spent too much. You know, in terms of stocking too much bait fish, I'm going to tell you this. No, you can't. You can't. You cannot stock too much bait fish. You can go to a 10-acre lake, stock 1,000 pounds of bait fish. That's not too much. Those predator fish are going to eat those bait fish. Remember, it takes 10 pounds of bait fish for a predator fish to gain a pound. So Chris says, when the hatchery truck arrives, how do you check the quality and the quantity of the fish ordered? Well, first of all, you got to trust your supplier. That's a big deal. You got to trust your supplier. Because let me tell you here, I'm going to tell you exactly how they do it. When you order fish, and let's say you order 20,000 bluegills and you order 100,000 fathead minnows. At the hatchery, they're going to take a half a pound or a pound of fish and they're going to weigh them accurately. Then they're going to count how many fish. Then they're going to extrapolate how many pounds they need. All the reputable hatcheries, which are almost all of them, there's a handful that may not be, but the reputable hatcheries will weigh out the poundage that they need and then add some. So they've got extra. Now, the smart aleck side of me says if the way you find out how many fish you got is you count their eyes and divide by 2. Woo, y'all are laughing at that. So how do you check the quality? So when the fish arrive, if you'll climb up on the truck and look down in there, if you see fish that are sink, when the lid of the tank is raised, the fish typically, now rainbow trout are different, but if you're talking about largemouth bass, bluegill, channel catfish, golden shiners, red ear sunfish, fathead minnows, fish like that, typical warm water species, when you raise the lid, they're going to sink to the bottom. Now when you raise the lid on largemouth bass, they're going to flush. They're going to want to fly out and hit you in the snoot. You know, so when you raise the lid on most warm water fish, they're going to sink to the bottom. Then as you're peering into the water, and the water should be clear with a little bit of a yellow tint, the yellow is an antibiotic that they put in the water to help minimize the risk of bacterial infection as they transport the fish. When you look down in there, you should never see red. You see the color of this shirt, this sweater I'm wearing? If you see red in your fish, that's not a good sign, ever. If you have them dip up a few fish and you look at them, if you see red, that's indication of bruising. That's indication of bacterial infections. That's injuries. You know, which some injuries, when you handle fish, you're going to squash them with a dip net, things like that. But the first thing you look at is how do they behave when they're on the truck. If they fall down to the bottom, that's normal. But you're looking for blood. You're looking for red on the fins. You're looking for the water being red. If the water's red, call me. Don't let them unload those fish. You know, so the main thing is to trust your supplier. So you need to do your due diligence before you ever buy those fish. You need to trust the hatchery. They need to be accountable to you because that's their job. Let's see here. Let me scroll down here. Can you stock too much bait fish? Got that one. I got our Cajuns are making fun of each other. I love that. Tate Smith, my F1 bass look like little footballs, but I'm in North Mississippi. They're already up to 1.5 pounds. Home run. Bases loaded, bottom of the ninth. You know, if they look like little footballs, or what Ray Scott used to say they look like Alabama deputy sheriffs, muscle bound, you know, that's what you want them to look like. There's going to be an article in the next issue of Pond Boss. If you haven't, hey, here's a magazine. Look at this. If you have not subscribed to Pond Boss magazine, you need to. $35 a year. Cheaper than a Friday night date. I'm getting ready to go spend more money on catfish than this cost in a year. Well, maybe I won't. It's $10.99 for all you can eat, and I'm going to meet up one of the guys that works for me and talk about it. But Pond Boss, $35 a year, all kinds of good stuff in here. there's two great articles coming up in the March-April issue. I've been editing that thing today and yesterday, and I'm telling you, there's some super articles coming up. If you haven't subscribed, go to pondboss.com, click on there, subscribe to the magazine. $35, I'm telling you. So Anthony says, when it comes to predator-prey species like crappie and yellow perch, is it better to manage them biologically or by harvesting to increase their size? Nothing worse than catching nothing but 6-inch perch to the eyes. Is it better to manage them biologically or by harvesting? Well, you know what? The bottom line is, if a fish is overcrowded, doesn't have enough to eat, it's not going to grow. It's going to get to that level and then level off. So I'm not sure what you mean biologically, like if you wanted to kill a few. It's really kind of hard, especially with yellow perch, to try to do a selective harvest, like with rotenone or something. So I think harvesting is a pretty good way to go. Now here's the deal about yellow perch. If you want yellow perch to grow and you want crappie to grow, those are parallel predator fish. Now, what I mean by parallel predator fish, they both have the similar mouth size. They both eat the same food objects and put a few largemouth bass in there. So now, if you're a little bit worried about the largemouth bass reproducing, stock males only or stock females only. In small waters, you don't need many. But if you can get something in there that can help eat those fish and get their numbers down, you'll see the sizes go up. Mark Hicks, good job. Hashtag Pond Boss Magazine. Danny Mac, it occurs to me an old silt-laden pond could provide clean runoff to a new pond. That's exactly right. So what Danny Mac is saying, a while ago when we were talking about going downstream and building a brand new dam, if you build a new dam, then the old pond becomes your silt trap. Looks like the video's trying to quit. No, I guess it didn't, but it is on my laptop. Frank James, I'm interested in nanobubble technology. Could they extend the perfect growing days for largemouth bass by opening up cooler water during the heat of the summer? Well, Frank, I think the jury's still out on that. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. My gut tells me yes, but my gut also tells me that when you're dealing with nanobubble technology, nanobubble technology is basically you're injecting microscopic bubbles of oxygen or air into an area that has zero. But what happens when you inject that oxygen into that water, then there's consumption. And when you're injecting it into water that has no oxygen, that's going to increase the metabolism of whatever's consuming the oxygen, which is, you're in an anaerobic situation. You've got periphyton, you've got a layer of muck, you've got decomposing organic matter. What I have learned so far about nanobubble technology is when you're injecting it into that area beneath the thermocline, it cannot be injected fast enough to keep up with the consumption. So the answer to that is, I don't know. Kenny Sanderson, if you see Chris or Billy at Pelicans, tell them hello. I saw Billy today. I didn't think to mention it to him that you and I had been talking, but I will. I'll let him know. Kyle Edwards, you're welcome. Jake Hughes, knee stocking advice. 1.25 acre pond in Statesville, North Cackalack. Pond established. Let's see. Established pond with a strong GB GB. You beat me on that. I don't know what a GB is. GB. Stocked 100 F1s and 100 wipers, fingerlings last year. I was advised to stock and feed 200 pounds of shiners. Oh, come on here, computer. In 50-pound increments. I was also told that I need red ear since I don't have any. They recommended 1,343. I don't really have a budget. Don't really have a budget for red ear. How important are red ear? Should I consider less shiners to afford red ear? Okay. 1.25 acre pond in Statesville. Tell Ryan Newman I said hello. I've got his cell number. I'll call him later and tell him that you're there. 100 F1s, 100 wipers, stock and feed. 200 pounds of shiners in a 1.25 acre pond, I would say no. No, don't stock 200 pounds of shiners. 200 pounds of shiners. I don't know why anybody would advise that. If you're trying to establish shiners in a pond, I'm presuming that, I wish I knew what GB was. GB. You know what? Type in and tell me what GB is. I don't recognize that. Great blue herons, I guess. 200 pounds of shiners, that is excessive. You don't need 200 pounds of shiners. I would budget money for red ear because they fill a niche and they'll help keep your lake happy. 50 pounds of shiners in a 1.25 acre pond is excessive. If you want to get golden shiners established in a 1.25 acre pond, 15 to 20 pounds of the larger ones should be enough. Stock them in mid to late March when they're gravid and ready to reproduce. 200 pounds of shiners is $2,000. Rather than do that, I'm kind of stammering a little bit. Here's what I would tell you. That's excessive. Stock 20 pounds of golden shiners if you think you need them. Buy a Texas Hunter feeder and buy some Purina Aquamax MVP and feed your fish. That's money way better spent than $2,000 on golden shiners. Somebody's trying to sell you 200 pounds of golden shiners needs $2,000. Well, buy a feeder, $849, $79 for a charger, $140 for freight, and then spend the rest of the money on fish food. Buy $200 worth of golden shiners. You're good to go. And buy red ear. See what there's Bruce Condello. To figure out how many female bluegill, you've got to count the eggs and divide. Bruce, you're getting some people laugh. Here we go. To figure out how many female bluegill you got to count the eggs and divide by 10,000. Yep, there you go. Christopher Aguilar, do you recommend bringing a lake bass? What's a lake bass? I don't know what that is. Frank James, thanks for an honest answer. I live through honesty, unlike our federal government. Jake Q's bluegill. Bluegill typo. Jake. 200 pound. Okay. GB. I'm dyslexic. GB should be BG. Okay, bluegills. I got it now. My bad. I see it. All right. The strong bluegill. Bluegill are the backbone of the food chain. Red ear are an insurance policy. Golden shiners help diversify. They're not as relevant as bluegill and red ear. Red ear are relevant. Golden shiners are additional. Buy the feeder. Buy the fish food. Tell the bait guy, thanks, but no thanks. Christopher says, do you recommend bringing a lake bass to our ponds? Christopher Aguilar, I would recommend bringing a lake bass to your house. To your house, because I know what you'll do. You'll cook it. You'll turn it into boudin, or you might make a andouille sausage. You'll do something with a lake bass. I don't know what that is. All right, Ron says I got 10.5 inch bluegill right now. If I want them to get to 11 to 12 inches, should I start harvesting 6 to 8 inch bluegill or 5 to 7s? That's a pretty good question right there, Ron Ardoin. I'll tell you what I'm going to tell you. If you've got 10.5 inch bluegill, they should get to 11 to 12s. That's a nutritional thing, less than a competition thing. My throat's going. Here we go, 7:04. Oh, there's some good cough syrup right there. I don't think it's a bad idea to harvest a few bluegills. So I think the question you're asking me, is this a nutritional issue or is it a competition for space issue? I'm going to tell you it's both. It's a little bit of competition for space, but it's a bigger competition for food. Now, if you've got bluegill that are 10.5 inches, I tell you what I would do. Now, everybody that doesn't know, Ron lives in South L.A., which L.A. means Louisiana. Change your feeder to feed 4 times a day. Because those 10.5-inch bluegills are the food hogs. So if you will feed them 4 times a day in little spurts, you'll take those 10.5-inch bluegill up to 11 inches to 11.5. And the smaller bluegill can't compete. But if you want to cull some of the small bluegills, that's not a bad idea. That's a good idea. Mark Hicks. I have a major algae bloom, blue-green algae, going on right now in my pond in central North Carolina. What would be a good product to kill the bloom and still be safe for my horses? Woo! This pond is my main water source from my livestock. I tell you what, Mark, first of all, you really need to confirm that it's blue-green algae because this time of year, blue-green algae is a little bit rare. So what I would tell you is confirm that it's blue-green algae, and if it's not, I'd tell you go another way. But if your pond isn't aerated, I'd look at aerating the pond. Then I would look at some microbial products to help break down the decomposing algae as it falls to the bottom. Then the other thing is, if you could, I don't know how you're feeding the horses. Do they just walk up and drink the water? If they don't, then I think I would try to get some water down from about 6 feet deep. If you can do that for your horses and pump water and then block them off the pond. I don't know enough about what you're doing. But a good product to kill a bloom would be a chelated copper compound. Look it up and make sure it's labeled for use around livestock. I can't tell you that it's not, and I can't tell you that it is. But I think here's the issue. I'm going to have to drink some water. Happen to have a fresh bottle right here. I don't know how many of y'all still have your tonsils, but I do. And I can feel them clapping against each other in my throat. I don't want to struggle with this answer, but I think you need to confirm that you have blue-green algae. And then I would look at trying to get water from 5 or 6 feet down to water your livestock and look at a chelated copper compound to knock out the algae. This is the wrong time of year to have a blue-green algae problem. If you got, okay, here's my answer. If you got blue-green algae now, you got death coming upon you with your pond about June or July. So verify and then decide what to do about it. And where you are in North Cackalack, I'd get in touch with Johnny Foster, Foster's Lake Management Company. Get them to analyze it for you. Then come up with a protocol. That's what I would tell you. Albert Hewitt, Japanese Joe's. Man, I wish I knew what you were talking about. Christopher Aguilar, like you catch a Toledo Bend bass and release it into your pond. Do not do that. No, I mean, if you want good genetics, buy it. You know, just because you catch a bass in Toledo Bend doesn't mean that that's great genetics for your pond. There's a concept called plasticity. Holy cow, you guys write that down. Buddy Floyd. I see Buddy Floyd looking on here. Golly, Buddy was supposed to come and join us with the Institute of Higher Pondology, and he didn't get to come. So, Christopher Aguilar, with the genetics thing, you don't know what the genetics are with fish from Toledo Bend. You don't know. If you want to increase or improve or add to your genetics, then buy fish from a source that you know, or go get fish from a source that you know. Just because you catch a big fish in a lake doesn't mean that that fish is going to thrive. Plasticity. Write that down. Y'all spell it. P-L-A-S something. Josie, you tell him. Wayne, you tell him. Plasticity. That is when you take fish from one environment, you move them to another. If they adjust, that they're plastic. So if you were to take 1,000 bluegill, put them in a stream, there's going to be a percentage of them that thrive in that stream. But if you take the same 1,000, put them in your pond, a different percentage of different fish are going to thrive in your pond. So fish adjust to their environment. Where a fish from Toledo Bend going to South Louisiana may not make it. So, there you go. Let's see what we got here. Aaron Gilbreth bought a property that has a 4-acre spring-fed pond about 30 miles south of I-40 in West Oklahoma, the Texas Panhandle Oklahoma line. The bass appear to be very healthy. Uh-oh. Lost it. Oh, here it is. Wait. Hold on. Let's see here. And we catch a lot of them. I'm not sure what kind of bass are stocked, but what type of bass would be best to stock to increase their size? Or should I just stock more bluegill and bait fish? 30 miles south of I-40. That's got to be around Shamrock, Texas. And I'm going to tell you 3.5 to 5 pound bass are pretty good. Odds are not high that they have Florida genetics, but that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I don't know that you need to stock more bass, as you need to spend time weighing and measuring those fish and comparing that to your forage fish. So here's going to be my answer to that. It takes 10 pounds of bait fish for a bass to gain a pound. Now, over there where you are, got to be near Shamrock somewhere, there's a lot of sand pits. It's where Bill Mack was born. Y'all go to University of Google and look up Bill Mack. But if you can grow bait fish, you can grow bass over there. So I don't know that you need to stock any fish. We need to know a little bit more about the history of that body of water. Then I can tell you. If the goals are to grow bass that are bigger than 5 pounds, genetics can play a role. But it's probably more of a bait fish situation over there than it is. And whether or not you should stock bluegill is going to be contingent on how many bass you have compared to how many bait fish you've got. This happens to me every week. Y'all know that. You guys that watch this show know. Let's see here. Jake, thanks, Bob. We already purchased 6 feeder. Yep, good. All right, get the reader. There you go. Danny Mac, Frank James. Great blue heron tastes like chicken. Danny Mac's in the house. You can always know it. Ron, I'm coming to get some bluegill from my pond. Uh-oh. Ron's going to lose some of those 5 to 7 inch bluegill because Christopher Aguilar is going to trade him some boudin balls for bluegill. Harrison Davis, have you ever seen the phenomenon of a largemouth bass leaping out of the water like a mullet? Yes, I have seen that. Why do you think they do that? I've seen that only twice ever. Well, I'm going to tell you a little story. Back, holy cow, I'm going to show you my age. Of course, you can look at my face and know the age. The very first lake that I had a chance to manage was northwest of Laredo, Texas. And this was in 1983, before most of you people were born. And it was up the Old Mines Road. And a man that's become a very dear friend of mine now for over 40 years. Close to 40 years. 83. So 38 years. Kenny Dryden from Austin had a hunting ranch down there with a bunch of his buddies. And they had this lake where the bass just weren't growing. Well, I didn't know anything about pond management. Didn't know anything on how to make a bass grow. So we went down there and he said, you're not going to believe this, but the bass come out of the water and they eat dragonflies. Well, they had these lawn chairs. You guys might remember the lawn chairs with the real thin aluminum frames where the skinny little nylon woven, whatever they were, made the lawn chair. Now, you old people are laughing at me because you know what I'm talking about. Well, we took some of those lawn chairs down there at dusk and sat down, and I'll be damned if these 12, 13, 14-inch bass would come out of the water 2 feet, 3 feet, and they'd catch a dragonfly. That was their food. That was my introduction into pond management. So part of what we did when I was down there was I had a 150-foot seine. We pulled a seine through that 30-acre lake, and guess what we caught? Bass. Nothing but bass. The biggest one was 12 inches long. 6 to 12-inch long bass. So that's when I first started figuring out that maybe you could mess around with lakes and grow bigger bass. So what we figured out was that they didn't have enough to eat. So to answer your question, yeah, I've seen them come flying out of the water, and it's kind of crazy. They do, but they only do that if they need to eat. You know, if you can imagine a long, lanky 12-inch bass that should weigh 12 ounces, weighs about 8, and it has to come out of the water 20 inches and catch a dragonfly that can barely see, that's a pretty honest living. Jason Rutledge, if I can only afford to stock a new pond with half the recommended stocking rate, should I wait to stock or go ahead with only half and follow up with the other half after I raise the money? Jason, I'll tell you this. It's okay to stock half the rate, but don't stock the game fish for at least a year. Because if you've got the budget to buy half the fish, then you've got the time to let those fish reproduce enough to create the food chain that would have happened if you'd had the money to stock it with the total number. So what you're doing is you're buying fish and you're losing time. So sometimes we have more time than we have money. So I think in that case, go ahead and stock the half the number, but wait twice the time before you stock your game fish. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. I've done that many, many, many times. Christopher Aguilar is picking on Ron. You know what? Speaking of Ron, he sent me a text today, and he's working with a guy that's got a 15-acre levied reservoir. So he wanted me to kind of talk about a levied reservoir. So I'm going to hit that for a few minutes. And Ron, I'm talking straight to you, buddy. Pay attention. Chris, leave him alone. He and I are talking mano a mano. There's Bill Robinson checking in. Good to see him. Gregory Roark checking in. Good to see him. What a levied reservoir is where somebody takes a field and they go around it and they build a levee and then they pump it full of water. Now, when they build the levee, typically there's a channel where they're taking a track hoe and a bulldozer and a compactor. They're digging dirt and they're building a levee up above natural ground level about 4 feet. So the channel may be 7 feet, 8 feet deep all the way around the perimeter of this field. And in this case, it's a 15-acre field with some channels cut through the middle of it. So the middle of this reservoir that's got a levee that's 4 feet above natural ground level, that means that there's some water 8 feet deep, but there's a whole bunch of water in the middle that's 2 to 3 to 4 feet deep. So what Ron's dilemma is there's a lot of shallow water. And in his text, he said that about 80% of that lake has got water less than 3 feet deep. Well, what that means is that it's going to fill up with aquatic plants. Uh-oh, I just lost my space here. Huh. Y'all bear with me a minute. I got to go through and find the comments again. So what it means is that, oh boy. So what it means is that the shallow part of that lake is going to be, the middle part of the lake is going to be real shallow. So there's a channel all the way around it. Well, with shallow water, it's going to vegetate. It's going to fill up with a whole lot of plants. So if 80% of the water's less than 3 feet deep, the burden that you have is that there's just way, way too much shallow water. So the channels are good all the way around the perimeter. Channels are good across it. But Ron, what I'm going to tell you is we'll have a conversation about this to where we need to talk about how to get more water deeper. So allowing that lake to go down a few feet and get some heavy equipment out there to rearrange the bottom will be helpful because you're going to be dealing with runaway aquatic plants. Now, in South Louisiana, that might not be such a big deal because you can stock some triploid grass carp. At least I think you can down there. Okay, I'm losing the comments again. Jason Rutledge. Yep, okay, we talked. Jim Schuessler, Latham Pugh. Okay, I'm going to go up on my phone and mess with it here. Ryan Triple, Chris Norrell, Mark Dyer, Bob Mayer, Bill Robinson, Gregory Roark. Okay, guys. I'm looking at you guys where I'm broadcasting on the phone. But Ron, I'm going to tell you this. A levied reservoir can grow some huge fish. Now, the problem in South Louisiana, you're going to have too much aquatic plant growth, and you're going to have to deal with birds. You guys have bird populations there that nobody else even knows about. So I think I would be talking about that some and looking at that. John Elmer. Bob, can't thank you enough for everything you do. You're welcome. I've greatly enjoyed my Pond Boss subscription. Thank you for subscribing, John Elmer. The forum in your videos. My pond is only in the second year. Matt Rail is helping. Matt Rail is a stud. He's a great guy. Check out his Facebook page. Check out his nonprofit. He's got a pretty good thing going on with his Facebook page. Harrison Davis, that makes sense, but I could swear during my sightings they didn't budge their mouth and I didn't see any insects in the air. Well, you know what? Come with me to Laredo and I'll show you the difference. Although we did figure out how to feed them down there. You know what? I do want to take a minute and say thank you to Texas Hunter Products for sponsoring this show. Same with Purina Mills and Easy Doc of Texas, David Schneiderman. If you guys haven't subscribed to Pond Boss, I'm going to ask that you please do. $35 a year, cheaper than a Friday night date, and you get a nugget out of each one of these, and your Friday night date's gone in a few hours. So, please subscribe to Pond Boss. It's what fuels the economy so we can do things like this, that and our sponsorships. Ron Ardoin bought 2 magazine subscriptions for his customers. Good. That's a good idea. Even though we're past Christmas, it's okay. We got Valentine's Day coming up. Then we have St. Patrick's Day. Then we have my birthday. Then we have Easter. Then we have Memorial Day. Independence Day. You got plenty of reasons to buy a gift subscription to Pond Boss. Dave Weber checking in from up yonder in Kansas City. Would it work in a levied reservoir to use some of that excess dirt to push up some islands, creating more edge? Absolutely right. And more depth? Absolutely yes. That is a great idea. Which when Ron and I talk, we're going to discuss that. The downside to islands is in the South. Now in Kansas City, you don't have the same issues they've got in South Louisiana. They're going to have birds nesting there when you're not. Now, you might have some geese nest on an island in Kansas City, but they will have everything from flamingos to ibises, to roseate spoonbills nesting on that island. So we need to talk about that. Let's see here. Jason Rutledge, you always say 10 pounds of forage to grow 1 pound of bass. Is the weight included in sustaining life? No, it is not. That's a really good question, Jason. You say that it takes 10 pounds of forage for a fish to gain 1 pound. That's true. But depending on the circumstances, it could take as much as 20 more pounds just to maintain their weight. And that depends on how much they have to hunt, how much they have to move around, how much their energy they've got to expend just to live through the course of a day. So, forage fish is a big deal. Culling predator fish is a big deal. I've got 2 articles coming up in the next issue of Pond Boss about culling fish. That's a big deal. Kenny extended his subscription. Yeah, he said there's not a life. I tell you what, Kenny, the reason there's not a lifetime option is because I have a lifetime. And at some point that's going to end. And I don't want people after me have to figure out how to cover your subscription just because I died. So, here we go. Katie, fishing like a cat. Katie Baca. You know what, Katie? You don't live too far from here. And I love so much watching your videos and watching your Facebook page and how much you love to fish. I love the passion that you bring. Just keep doing it. Ron Ardoin, when are we going to have the Pondology Institute? Ron, I'm trying to figure that out. I've got so many moving parts in my life right now, which I'll share later after they kind of define themselves. And then we'll talk about it. But I tell you what I'm getting ready to do. I'm getting ready to take the Higher Institute of Pondology and or the Institute of Higher Pondology, and some of that's going to go online. I've got some videos coming up, which I'll share when I get it figured out. But if you want to do some of that curriculum online, you're going to be able to do that. So, I'm about to run out of voice, run out of topics, even though we got 5 more minutes. Let's see here. I do want to tell you this. I did take a few notes on the back of an envelope. Do y'all ever do that? I need to open this envelope and see what's in it. I probably owe somebody some money, but it was on my desk. So we talked about a levied reservoir. Hey, winter checklist. Oh, okay. Here's what I wanted to say about that. A winter checklist. See it right there where I wrote winter checklist, water quality and lime. I want you to check your water chemistry right now. See what your alkalinity is. See what your pH is. Because if you're going to lime your lake, right now is the time. Look at there. Matt Rail checking in. I was hoping he might pop in tonight. Chris, you better bring the pond seminar to Edinburgh. You know what? I love the way you're thinking, Chris. Let's have a talk here. Ray Harder, here in Southwest Missouri, I can't find any dealers that have Aquamax fish food and wants to. You know what? Send me an email. BobLusk@Outlook.com. There are dealers in Southwest Missouri that will handle Aquamax fish food. I promise. Let's see here. Alan Jenkins, thank you so much. Alan from mid-north Georgia, south of Athens. Good to see Alan Jenkins. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate the compliment. Check your water chemistry right now. That's a good. Right now, that's one of the things you need to do. If you're going to do any habitat improvements, right now is a good time to do that. Especially you guys that have ice. Just John Funk. Don't go out on the ice if the ice is John Funky. Ooh. He didn't really say that, but yes, he did. So be sure your ice is safe. Now is a good time to go out and put some brush piles on top of the ice, as long as you can make sure that they'll sink there instead of breaking up and floating other places. But right now is a good time to do it. Kenny Sanderson, Pittsburgh, Kansas. I love Pittsburgh, Kansas. That's good stuff. Greg Dominique, thank you from Cajun country. We got a lot of Cajuns. I love Cajuns. I'll tell you a story about that one of these days. Kenny says 12 miles northwest. Yeah, Joplin. Okay, for my bullhead and gizzard shad situation, should I limit the brush piles or keep adding? Bullheads and gizzard shad do not care about brush piles. Gizzard shad, they're going to graze in shallow, muddy water. Bullheads are going to stick their heads in the mud. So they don't care about brush piles. What cares about brush piles are baby bluegills, small bass, and fish that need dense cover to be able to hide. Water quality, do your water quality. Check that now. If you need a lab, send me an email. I will send you a form, $40. You can get your water tested. Habitat Additions. I got to talk to Matt Rail today, Greg Grimes today, Troy Goldsby today. Going to have a pretty good article coming out in Pond Boss this issue. Matt's going to have an article, and I've talked to Greg and Troy about all female largemouth bass populations. We talked about that last week, and we're going to talk about that in Pond Boss. Ed Tyndall, how many brush piles for a 4-acre pond? 16. 4 per acre. Doing peripherally, you want about 20 to 30% of your pond to have some kind of habitat. Brush piles need to be at least 4 feet by 4 feet by 6 feet. That can be 4 feet high, 6 feet long, 4 feet wide, or vice versa, depending on the depth of the water. Put them in water about 8 feet deep. Do that. So, guys, it's 7:29. I'm going to go eat some catfish at Pelican's Landing. If Billy's there, I'm going to tell him that you said hello. So, folks, I really appreciate you watching this show. You guys energize me, which that's a good thing, I think. And I hope that I can help keep your passion rocking and rolling. And I appreciate you watching. So, next Wednesday, I think I'll be here. And we will catch up. If you got topics, if you got something you want to know about, send me an email, BobLusk@Outlook.com. In the meantime, subscribe to Pond Boss Magazine. There's the latest issue. I've never run a nighttime photograph, but this is a cool photograph by Paul Tuzzolino. So, until next Wednesday, adios.